I'm Lydia.
I'm Ed.
We're friends with a playlist for everything. And it turns out we both have one called Survival Songs.
And it got us thinking, what are other people's survival songs?
So we thought we'd find out.
Welcome to Survival Songs,
A podcast where each episode our guest tells us about a song that gets them through the best and worst of times.
sensitive topics might be discussed.
So look after yourself.
The show contains portions of copyrighted material.
We'd love for you to support and celebrate the artists by streaming, downloading and buying their brilliant music. And go give our guests a follow on social media.
Help us grow the community of survival song listeners by joining us over on Substack and add to our public playlist on Spotify. Links are in the show notes.
We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome back to Survival Songs. This week I am delighted to be speaking to Caroline Ross, who is an artist, writer and maker based by the sea in Bournemouth. She makes paints, inks and pigments from foraged materials and ancient processes and wrote a book about it so that you can do it too. The book's called Found and Ground. Caro beams when she talks about writing, which has recently gained a big readership under the name Uncivil Savant on Substack, and she takes serious joy in teaching courses and hosting workshops all over the UK and Europe. Significant eras include time recording and touring in a band, living on a boat on the Thames, and both leaving and returning to art making on her own terms. Caro did me a solid on her choice this week. I listened once and had a massive cry, and then had to listen a couple more times so that I knew what song we were talking about. This is Mount the Air by the Unthanks.
My love, because I know my lover, he loves me.
So that was a little bit of Mount the Air by the Unthanks, which is the survival song of our guest today, Caroline Ross. Thank you for joining me, Caro.
You're so welcome. It's lovely.
I'm so glad that you're here. Although I am a little bit annoyed at you for choosing this song because it's the first one that made me cry, and I hate you for that a little bit. Tell me about it. Tell me about this song. How did it find you? Why have you chosen it?
Oh my goodness. Well, first I should say, first time I heard it, it made me cry. So you're in the Cry First club now, which is great.
So annoyed. I've had plenty of goosebumps doing this project, but not tears yet. This was the first one.
Absolutely no shame. To my shame, I'd never heard of the Unthanks. I'm not a folk aficionado, though even when I was in bands, reviewers would always go, oh, kind of folkish vocals from Caroline Ross. That's just because I sung in a school choir as a kid, so I have this really, unless I really work at it, I have this standard English schoolgirl voice, which I sought to shake off so much. But I hadn't heard of the Unthanks, and I hadn't listened to music for about 10 years, maybe even 12 years at all, apart from going in shops. You know, I wouldn't play any music, and I'd stopped even listening to the radio because I'd been in recording studios and bands for so long, like a whole decade, and touring. I'd had enough. It was like my ears just rebelled. So I was in this passage of like a desert of music. And then I was doing some work with some great people, and one of my colleagues who became a friend, he sent me playlists on this thing called Spotify. And I was like, press play. And tears welled up. There was all this music he'd sent, new music, old music, music in common, like Kate Bush or whatever. But oh my goodness, when Mount the Air came on, I couldn't believe the beauty. And it was like the kind of strings and orchestral production of something like mid-period Nick Drake, or, you know, it was, or Astral Weeks by Van Morrison. And yet there's these amazing Northern women's voices, which just literally my eyes just sort of squirted tears. And then when I listened to the lyrics, never mind the incredible arrangement, I couldn't believe that they were talking about love in the way they did, that it was a traditional song and that it was also somehow about soul retrieval, which was slap bang where I was at, right in the middle of menopause and the great derangement. So yeah, I came across this song in the middle of inner turmoil, and it's been a rock.
You're right. It's so beautiful isn't a big enough word. It soars, doesn't it? It really goes places. This isn't a way of I don't want to limit it or make it any smaller, but it reminded me a little bit of The Snowman, because I would watch that absolutely committedly every Christmas day as a child. And the way that the whole thing hangs on music, and music is the most important part of that whole, it was cinematic to me, but I could see imagery, and you're flying over the sea as you're listening to it, and you're in the sky. It's gorgeous. And as you say, there's as much music as there is lyric. It's a 10, nearly 11-minute song. Do you have a favorite bit, or is that a terrible question, or a bit that you wait for?
That's a great question, and I always play it all the way through. Like, I would never dream of truncating it when I listen to it. It depends. I mean, I really love the verses. So when they come in, I love the timing and the syncopation. But near the end, when there's this everybody changing key altogether, and it's just I think it's, what are the lyrics? It's I can hear that you are with me. It's just, I will always cry, and I literally can't sing along, and I sing along with everything, much to previous flatmates' annoyance. But yeah, it's right at the end where you've got them all coming in and changing the refrain, and it has got, if you like, that snowman feeling. So later, I saw this. I saw the Unthanks perform just after COVID. And I was with my friend who has recently become my partner, who's an amazing person. And I was telling them how much I liked the Unthanks. And he said, well, we could go and see them in Bath. So we met up to go and see them in Bath. And loads of people were still masked. We weren't, because that wasn't the rule, but that was fine. And I just said, as we went in, after we'd had a curry, I went in and said, look, I might cry if they play Mount the Air, and I might grab your arm and you might get a wet shoulder, and I'm apologizing in advance. And he said, that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about it, which is so nice. Anyway, so they did it. I think it's the encore. I know they did Sorrows Away, but the one before, they did Mount the Air, and they clog danced at the end. So they've pulled out all the stops. You and me are both crying when we listen to it. But can you imagine the two lead singers, the sisters, clog dancing, proper Northumbrian clog dance? Literally, how much more crying can you do? I was crying because of the music, the lyrics, the beauty of the band, the fact that lockdown was over, and these beautiful women in their wooden clogs giving it complete welly. In fact, I've got tears coming to my eyes thinking of it. I don't know if I've seen anything so beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. And yeah, I made my beloved's shoulder very wet.
Or who is now your beloved. What a lovely story to have at a time when you were friends, and now you have this. Yeah, one of the first shows or gigs that I ever went to after lockdowns was Lost Spell Songs. I don't know if you've come across that. It's a Robert McFarlane project with a whole bunch of incredible folk musicians and singers. And there was a very similar moment where I turned to my partner and said, if they play this one, I'm gone and you'll just have to deal with it. And then they did. And my mask was soggy because we were all still masked at that point. But I wonder if folk music in that scenario just is going to break a person apart, isn't it? It's a storytelling medium. It's been around for centuries to do just that, and then we're in a tender moment and it breaks through and it breaks us open, and that's it, we're gone.
Totally that. And it has that in common with all great art. I mean, and I would especially include sort of in the end of the 80s when I was still a kid, but my brother played great music upstairs. Always there's bass lines. That's why I ended up playing bass. There's bass lines coming through. There's like Led Zepp. There was electric funk, and then but he was playing Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. He was playing Grandmaster Melly Mel is playing all this really early great hip hop, and for me that was the great folk music. I mean, that was American folk music, and that's black folk music, but it was. For me, when I look back, weirdly, I don't know if they've been in the same sentence, but like the Unthanks and the rap, the great hip hop of the 80s said the same thing. They're like, life is really tough. You're going to miss the people you love. You're not necessarily going to get on. You might lose them. They are precious. And now check out these beats. And whether it's like the clog dancing or the amazing street dance that I used to love watching in those days, before people all got addicted to their phones and stopped spinning on their heads in the street, which I really miss. But there is something in common wherever you are in the world. And I get it with Bulgarian folk music too, with those crazy quarter tone harmonies, which I adore. We sometimes need to get out of our heads, and not via substances, although I think music is a substance and just as addictive, but it leaves you with such benefits. And the Unthanks and that playlist from my friend brought me back to music after a decade away. And it was like there was a homecoming, and in the lyrics of the song where, I know that you are with me, I know that you are me, there is this sense that something that was lost, it can be regained. So I should probably send a letter to the Unthanks to say thank you.
I mean, completely, undoubtedly. I want to read that letter before it goes. You've alluded to it in quite a few places already, but I'm wondering if you could say more about what survival means for you, or what it means in relation to this song, because it sounds like the song arrived at a time where it woke up some things, and it supported some things that had been dormant for a while. But where's the survival in it for you?
Oh my goodness, quite literally survival, because as you might know, with friends as they get older, with women friends, there's some people. I have one friend who had a menopause where her period stopped, and she went, it must be menopause, and carried on. And that was it. There was like 2 days where she noticed something, which is wonderful. And I'm trying very hard not to be extremely jealous. And so there is wisdom out the other side. However, the sort of 5-year derangement with 2 years of serious severity, mental health, I would say, was not to be sniffed at. And it was just before all those TV programs in the UK where they really started talking about it. And I was just like, how come I didn't know you went mad? How come no one said you could literally be another person? And so, it's, when I say survived, it helped me not end myself. And I'm glad of the support I had, but music was a huge part of that, like being able to cry and dance around my boat. And the swans would look at me strangely through the window. It's like, I'm not feeding you yet. I just have to cry and dance a bit more, and then I promise I'll feed you. And I'm like, okay.
Swans get it. Yeah, I'm 34. I've not experienced the menopause yet, but I do know what it feels like for your body to be somewhere else to where your head and your heart are. And certainly music plays a role in that for me too. So I'm sure lots of people would resonate with that idea. Does it change how you listen to music to have been involved in the music industry? I mean, for you to have left it for 10, 12 years with just no music makes me think that you really, really did need that silence for a while. But do you listen to music differently now, knowing what you know about it and how it's made and how it's performed?
That's such a good question. And I needed the 10 years to stop analysing everything and going, they've used too much compression on that. And, why have they used that bass line? And that's a preset from an 808. That's a drum machine. So I had to just stop getting annoyed at record production and how poor it was when it all moved to away from real buttons and into these presets after the I'm not going to get technical, but that virtual machinery came into the recording studio and everything started to sound the same, and it's measurable. But anyway, I had to put that down. And so I would say that I'm listening to music in a natural way again now, but clearly I'm not. And I was in the van with my work wife last year when we were in the States, and she was playing some of her favorite music, which is kind of American pop country. And I'm like, oh my God, there's way too much compression on this. And she said, what's compression? And I was like, oh, wow, I need to explain this. I was like, well, imagine you've got waves and they've got ups and downs, and you've got a landscape and you chop the tops off the mountain and you fill in the valleys with them. That's like compression. Or it's like a brick of sound coming out of the speaker at you. And she went, whoa, I've never thought about that. It was like, oh yeah, no, it's still there. I'm still analysing everything, but it's just a little bit lower down now.
Yeah, but even just watching you, because we can see each other as we're talking, although the person listening won't be able to see, and you're tracing the shape of those mountains and valleys. I'm thinking, well, here's the visual artist in her. She's hearing things as a musician. She's seeing things as a visual artist. I get it. I feel you. I'm the same. But also, man, that's a lot to think about, isn't it? It's not a simple experience ever.
No, and I needed those years, and I needed the emotional roller coaster of something like Mount the Air to wipe the analytical mind, the left hemispheric analyzing of all the music. I needed to wipe that clean. And the time, the kind of musical fast, if you like, has made the feast since much more delicious. I don't see the point in feasts without renouncing something before. And I really feel like music has come back to me tenfold, but it needed me to go away to appreciate it, and not to be, it's like picking apart a relationship. I need to be a friend to music now, and not the person wagging my finger at music. So yeah, music and I get along okay now, and we occasionally have a fling.
I'm curious to know, it's a mammoth of a song. It's beautiful, but it takes 11 minutes to be with it. How often are you listening to this? Where are you listening to it? What are you doing while you're listening to it? Is it still the one where you're crying and dancing? You live by the sea, and there's a lot of ocean references in this song. I'm wondering if they have a relationship. Can you, in whatever way feels comfortable, can you paint a picture of your 11 minutes with this song?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's two places I'll hear it. So I'll be in my flat. It's got a big living room that we're talking in right now, and if it's on one of the playlists that I'm playing that day, I might be doing the ironing, but I'll stop and I'll turn the iron off, and then I'll start dancing around to it and singing along and kind of crying and maybe having a cup of tea. So I'll listen to it in my flat, and then I'll listen to it all the way through because it just came on. I probably won't put it on. Or I'm on a train and I've got my headphones on, and I've got really good noise cancelling headphones for the screaming children avoidance. And then I'll actually put it on and I'll have a little weep. And that's usually when I'm coming back down from seeing my lovely man. And I'm like, I miss him so much. I'm just going to play something and make it worse. Because I'm not a teenager or anything. Don't listen, folks. If you're 52, you're actually 15 and a half. That's how it actually feels. So just if you're younger than me and listening to this, don't worry, it's going to get dramatic and exciting again. I promise.
That's so hopeful and brilliant. I've really, really loved this, Caro, and it's so for people who aren't aware of your work yet, your approach to this song and the way that you dance with it is so congruent with the way that you think about the world and the way that you dance with beauty, and the kind of the gifts that you point to for other people to look at. If people do want to find out more about what you're up to, where would they go looking?
For art things and my book on like art materials, natural art materials and ancient things, just Google Found and Ground and you'll find me. There's like an extraordinarily out-of-date website and a very up-to-date Instagram. But for writing and actually my movement practice and the Tai Chi stuff that came out of the silence, that's at Uncivil Savant, which is on Substack. And I love writing now, so it'll be nice to meet people there, but that's generally where I hang out. That's actually what I should be doing.
And that's where we met. So I'm really, really glad that it's there. Thank you for this, Caro. I've had the best time chatting to you about this song.
It's been my pleasure. Lovely to talk to you too.
We really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to support the podcast further, you can choose to upgrade your subscription on Substack. But most of all, we'd just love it if you told your friends about what we're up to. Thanks for listening.